There is a saying among investigators that witnesses are unreliable. Memories shift, fear alters details, and sometimes people lie to protect themselves. But some of the most disturbing cases aren't the ones where no one speaks. They're the ones where someone tells the truth, clearly and immediately, and no one believes them. On the evening of June 14, 1994, the town of Briar Creek, Oregon, was settling into early summer. It was the kind of place where people felt safe without thinking about it, where bad things happened elsewhere, not here. That night, 17-year-old Emily Carter finished her shift at a small diner just before 10. Instead of taking the main road home, she chose the old railroad trail, a quiet shortcut she had walked dozens of times before. It felt familiar, comfortable, safe. As Emily walked, she heard raised voices ahead of her. At first, she assumed it was an argument, something ordinary. But then she heard a scream. It was brief, sharp, and suddenly cut off. Emily stopped. Her heart began to pound as she looked down the trail and saw two figures near the tree line. One stood upright, the other was on the ground. The standing figure bent down, then straightened, and in that moment he looked directly at her. Even in the dim light, Emily recognized his face immediately. It was someone she knew. She didn't wait to see more. Emily ran. She ran all the way home, locked her bedroom door, and stayed awake until sunrise. When police sirens echoed through Briar Creek the next morning, she already knew what they meant. A jogger had found the body of Sarah Milton, a 22-year-old college student near the railroad trail. The cause of death was blunt force trauma. When police arrived at Emily's house later that day, she told them everything. She described the voices, the scream, the moment she saw the man's face. She gave them his name without hesitation: Mark Delaney. He was 28 years old, a volunteer firefighter, respected in the community, and engaged to be married. Emily said she was certain. She had seen him clearly. He had looked right at her. The officers listened, but something shifted in the room. They asked if she was sure. They asked about the lighting. They noted she hadn't been wearing her glasses. Mark Delaney, they explained, had an alibi. He had been at the firehouse watching a baseball game with 3 other firefighters, all of whom confirmed his story. Emily's statement wasn't thrown out, but it was quietly set aside. Official notes described her as emotionally distressed. The town quickly made up its mind. Mark Delaney was a good man. Emily Carter became the girl who accused him. People stopped looking her in the eye. Friends grew distant. At school, someone wrote the word liar on her locker. She repeated her story to detectives, counselors, and teachers, but every time the response was the same. Trauma can distort memory. You want justice. We need facts. The investigation stalled. Weeks turned into months, and months into years. Sarah Milton's case went cold. Emily graduated high school and left Briar Creek, but she never left that night behind. She replayed the image over and over, the way Mark froze when he saw her, the calm in his face, the certainty in his posture. It didn't look like panic, it looked like control. 5 years later, another woman disappeared. Her name was Rachel Boone. She vanished while jogging near a wooded trail outside town. The similarities were impossible to ignore. This time, a man walking his dog reported seeing someone arguing with her shortly before she vanished. His description was vague, but familiar. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a baseball cap. Once again, Mark Delaney was questioned. By then, he was married, a father, and still a firefighter. Once again, he had an alibi. The case went cold. Emily watched the news from another state, her hands shaking. She called the Briar Creek Police Department and identified herself. She repeated her statement from 1994, hoping this time it would matter. The detective listened politely, then told her they had already been through this. Years passed. In 2006, severe flooding damaged parts of Briar Creek, including the old firehouse. During cleanup, workers discovered a sealed metal locker hidden behind a collapsed wall in the basement. Inside were personal items wrapped in plastic: Sarah Milton's college ID, her bracelet, her sweatshirt. The locker belonged to Mark Delaney. This time, there was no explaining it away. DNA evidence connected Mark not only to Sarah Milton, but also to Rachel Boone and additional disappearances that had never been publicly linked. The pattern became undeniable. The town that had once protected him now watched in silence as he was arrested. At trial, evidence piled up quickly. Experts testified, witnesses spoke. Then Emily Carter took the stand. 14 years had passed from the night on the railroad trail. She told the jury the same story she had told police all those years ago, unchanged and unwavering. Mark Delaney never looked at her. The verdict was guilty on all counts. After the trial, a reporter asked Emily how it felt to finally be believed. She paused before answering. She said she had always told the truth. It just took years for anyone to listen. Briar Creek later built a small memorial near the railroad trail. On the plaque were simple words that summed up the case better than any verdict ever could. Sometimes the truth speaks once and waits years to be heard.